Okay, real progressives. This is Geoff Ginter. It's Wednesday. It is the 17th of October. Welcome. There's something I want to get over. Just I've seen it and it's pissed me off. Uh, Mostly because I have a lot of guilt around this particular topic. Like the guilt I have over so many topics. I'm not that young, anymore. I've certainly been around, and I've been aware for a long time. And for the vast majority of my life, I didn't do anything. And it's not because I didn't know the difference between right and wrong. I knew. I knew. Uh, Hold on. I'm turning off my phone. I knew the difference between right and wrong. What I lacked, was the faith that what I felt about these things would actually matter. I lacked the faith that any one individual, especially someone like myself, someone who never really aspired to be anything other than a singer and a songwriter and a drummer and a guitar player. I didn't aspire to anything more than that. And I don't mean to make that sound like those aren't noble pursuits. I'm an artist. I believe in the arts. But I never imagined that I would ever say anything that would matter to anyone outside of that arena. So I never said anything. So when the Me Too movement started, I was there, fist in the air, and said, yes, yeah, please take us down. Take us down. Take us all down if that's what it takes. If that's what has to happen, I don't think it does have to happen that way, but if that's what it takes, I'm all for it. I don't know how it's going to be fixed. I don't. I really don't. But it's going to take a lot of men owning up to not only their part, if you actively did anything to hurt anyone, passively, actively, it doesn't matter. You have to recognize it. And if the worst thing that you ever did was not say something when something was happening, whether you recognized it for what it was or if there was that sinking feeling in the back of your head that you know something is on, you know something is wrong, and maybe you're just not paying attention, whatever it is, we're on a spectrum. And we got to own up to that. So when I see things like this, Hillary Clinton, Bill's affair with Monica Lewinsky wasn't an abuse of power because she was an adult. I just want to say right off the top, this is not about Hillary Clinton. Say anything that you want about Hillary Clinton. She is a public official. She is a public persona. God knows she wants the spotlight more than anyone I've ever known. Man, woman, child, quadruped, I don't care. So say what you will. But this is not what this is about. This is not about me saying, fuck you, Hillary Clinton. This is not about me saying, how dare you. This is about me trying to get people to understand about power and the abuses of power. And it doesn't matter if they were both an adult. It simply doesn't. The power structures are what matter. It wasn't wrong simply because she might have been a minor and he was an adult. I'm not talking about Bill and Monica, obviously. It's not simply wrong if one is of a certain age and the other one is clearly not of age. It's wrong in those instances, but also when the power structures are such that he had the power, she did not. It doesn't matter if that's what she wanted. It was still wrong. It was wrong for him to accept it if that's how it went down. It was wrong for him to pursue it if that's how it went down. And I wasn't there. I don't know how it went down. But the fact that it happened was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. And of the two of them, he has more culpability because he was older and should have known better and was the president of the goddamn United States. It would have been wrong if he was simply a manager at Starbucks and she was a cashier. It would have been wrong. Power structures matter. And if Hillary Clinton doesn't get that, then I hope that you do. I hope that you understand that it was wrong. It was wrong then. I don't care if it was a different time. I don't care if there was a different sensibility. It was wrong, and everyone knew it. Whether it was a little something on the back of your head, something nagging at you, you couldn't articulate it. Maybe you were like me. I was too busy being outraged at the Republicans for being able to move around from subject to subject to do anything to get over on them. It pissed me off so much I couldn't get past that, and that was my failing. That was me being wrong. I could have and should have done more. I could have and should have done two things at once. Condemn the GOP and condemn Bill Clinton. You can do two things at once. It doesn't matter if it's complicated. Be able to handle nuance. It's okay. Your head won't explode. It took me 20 years to be able to learn that. Anyway, I just want to start with that. It's about power. Everything we're going to talk about tonight, about MMT and democracy and single-payer health care, Medicare for All, it's about power. Who has it? Who wants it? Who needs it? All right. Let's get this show started. Okay, so I want to start tonight, really with this from Scott Fulwiler. Because if you've been watching me for long enough, if you've been watching Real Progressives long enough, it is my hope that you all understand how modern monetary theory works. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight for those that may be new to my streams. But you understand that a sovereign government with a sovereign currency, remember, it's not just a fiat currency, it's a sovereign currency. It's a currency that is not backed by anything. It is created by fiat. It is created by decree. It is non-convertible into a commodity like gold. It is free-floating against the relative values of other currencies. And as long as you have an economy that is robust enough, that is flexible enough, that has the real resources to be able to provision itself and does not really need much, if any, of the rest of the world to be able to function and provide for itself. The policy space is wide open, completely wide open. We also have the benefits of being a net importer, so we actually enjoy the benefits of the rest of the world's resources as well. But we don't need it. It's not a mandatory thing. So when Scott Fulwiler here says the New York Times Business is saying the federal deficit has grown to $779 billion. The Treasury Department says putting it on pace to top $1 trillion a year before the next presidential election. So here we talk about the New York Times Business is really ramping up the rhetoric about the size of the deficit, really trying to make sure that you all are paying close attention to the size of the deficit. What a scary number that is. And then Scott Fulwiler, says, funny how nobody seems to think the active use of fiscal policy has had much to do with sustained growth, unemployment rate continuing lower, all while Fed continues hiking, and still no sign of inflation. So what does this mean? So if you understand that we are not financially constrained. We're not on a gold standard anymore. First thing everyone needs to understand when it comes to federal finance, we're not on a gold standard anymore. The federal government creates the currency, and if it wants to, can constrain its spending by promising to exchange every dollar that it creates to something else. The federal government used to promise to exchange its dollars for gold. So if you had that arrangement, you could only put so much currency into circulation. I have promised to be able to exchange every dollar that I create. I am federal government. I create this money, and I promise every time you come back to the Federal Reserve, I will give you a certain amount of gold for every dollar you give me. So if I have pegged my currency to gold and I have 200 pounds of gold, and I have decreed that every dollar shall equal 1 pound of gold. This is Ellis Winningham, the most expensive dollar ever created, but for the math. If I have 200 billion pounds of gold, and I have valued 1 pound of gold to $1, I can only have the same amount of dollars in circulation. 200 billion pounds of gold, I can only have $200 billion in circulation. Anything more than that, and I start to, what? Devalue the dollar. If I print too much money, if I spend too much into the economy, if I spend in excess of how much gold I have on reserves, and I can't somehow increase my gold supply, I can't dig it out of the ground, I can't buy it from somewhere else, I can't win a war and take their gold in exchange, then I'm screwed. If I spend beyond that capacity, I have technically devalued the dollar. If there's a run on the dollar and people want to exchange, I don't have the gold reserves, can't do it. So we have constraints there. And I will have to tax and borrow things I was doing anyway to be able to spend more than I have in gold reserves. But we're not on a gold standard anymore. We went off of it in the 1930s so we could get out of the Great Depression and win World War II. Then, internationally, we got together in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Was like 45 countries agreed to a new currency arrangement. 44 of them, I think it is, peg their currencies to the U.S. dollar. And then the U.S. pegged its currency back to gold. And then Richard Nixon took us off that gold standard in 1971. We are not financially constrained. It doesn't matter any longer. We are no longer tied to how much of a fixed commodity we have. We can print as much money or create as much money as we need to be able to accomplish what we need to, what we want to. And we are constrained. So just make sure that everyone understands there are constraints. They're just not financial constraints. So when the New York Times is trying to get you to be afraid of a $1 trillion deficit, not a debt, a $1 trillion deficit, they're trying to tell you that we can't afford it. They're trying to tell you that whatever it is you're planning on doing, whether it be war or Medicare for All, whatever it is, we're running out of money. We can't do this anymore. But it's a lie. That was a real constraint when we were on a gold standard. We artificially constrained ourselves. But we're not anymore. We are resource constrained. What matters to a federal government with a sovereign currency is, do we have the real stuff? Do we have the real resources, the brick and mortar and human resources to be able to accomplish whatever it is we need to accomplish? And if we do, then we can spend safely into the economy without causing, what is Scott Fullwiler talking about? Inflation. Inflation is the constraint now. It doesn't matter how much something costs per se. It matters, do we have the real stuff to get it done? And is there enough slack in the economy to be able to do it without causing inflation? If we spend this money in this particular way on these particular groups, will there be enough slack in the economy to be able to ramp up production of goods and services to be able to have an even footing? This much currency with this much goods and services. Are they pretty much on par? If so, then we don't have inflation. Now, bear in mind, price stability and inflation are not the same thing. Inflation is when the cost of everything across the board goes up over time. Maybe slowly over time, maybe quickly over time. There's all different kinds of inflation. But price instability in certain areas of the market is not inflation. There are a metric ton of reasons why prices go up or come down. None of them have anything to do with money creation. Okay? Hyperinflation, you need some kind of shock to the system. Weimar Republic in post-World War I Germany. They lost a war. They had reparations to be paid in foreign coin. Their productive capacity was decimated because of the war. What little productive capacity areas they had left were under the control of other countries. So yeah, they were able to print money, and they had to get a wheelbarrow into the bakery to be able to buy a loaf of bread. But it wasn't the printing of the money that caused the hyperinflation. You need some kind of shock to the system to create a hyperinflation. But we can have inflation from money creation. And we do have that constraint. We must admit it. We must own it. And we have to be able to make sure that we are sending people to Congress who not only understand federal finance, but who are also responsible enough to be able to look into the future, to be able to make the best forecast and listen to the best experts possible and realize that, yes, we can in fact do this. We have the slack in the economy to be able to handle full employment, to be able to handle a federal jobs guarantee to get us to full employment, to be able to get single-payer health care so that everyone will be able to have health care regardless of their ability to pay. No one will ever be poor ever again. You may not be rich, you may barely even be in the middle class, who knows, but you won't be in poverty. You will not be scarce for resources to feed yourself and to feed yourself well and to have a roof over your head and transportation to get you to work, wherever that may happen to be. You won't ever be out of a home because you had a medical bill that you couldn't pay. We can do all this and so much more. We may not be able to do it all at once, but you set your priorities. What do you want to do? What are we agreeing as a nation is important? And you do that. And you never ask how you're going to pay for it. You ask, how are you going to do it? You ask, do you have the resources? Is it going to be inflationary? Have an honest conversation. Argue the merits of the program. Stephanie Kelton put out a tweet just recently. Find me the Dem who can say, yep, Republicans left us with trillion-dollar deficits, and that poses no risk whatsoever to Social Security. Because that is what's needed, an outright rejection of the claim that deficits will force cuts to Social Security. Because they don't. You can absolutely pay for anything that is for sale in U.S. dollars if you are the creator of the dollar. So Social Security is 100% solvent. Every U.S. citizen that is eligible for Social Security can get and receive Social Security on time, every day, in full. There was nothing to stop the federal government from making this happen. They don't need to look for the money. They don't need to earn the money. They don't need to collect the money. They have to spend the money. And in the spending is the creation of the money. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Checkmate, motherfucker. That's how it works. As Alan Greenspan himself said, there is nothing stopping a federal government from creating as much money as it wants to and paying it to someone. The deal is coming up with a situation, with a methodology, a structure of the financial system. Are we a productive enough society today to be able to make sure that there is goods and services so that every payment we make is going out into the economy and people will be able to pay for shit? They will be able to pay for stuff, and we're not going to have shortages. We're not going to have inflation. And are we going to be a productive enough society in the future? Are we making the necessary investments right now in education, in infrastructure, in research and development, in food production? Are we looking after our environment? Are we taking climate change seriously? Are we meeting that demand with the dollars it's going to take to be able to get us off fossil fuels and off industrialized farming and reclaim our environment so that we can have a sustainable environment? Because none of the stuff we're talking about right now is going to mean anything if we don't have an environment. So what we need to make sure, are we sending people to Congress who are not only committed to getting it done, but who are committing themselves to learning and understanding how it can be done financially? Because right now, everywhere I turn, with increasingly fewer and fewer places, thank God, but the vast majority of the people in Congress, the vast majority of the people on television, are still trying to get you to believe that it's an expensive thing and the debt and the deficit are just horrible burdens upon our grandchildren, and we're going to have to be able to tighten our belt. Say goodbye to single-payer health care. Say goodbye to a federal job guarantee. Say goodbye to your planet. Because they would love to be able to deal with climate change, but it's just such an awful expense. It's about power. Who has it? Who needs it? What are you willing to do to get it? What are you going to do with it once you do get it? So this brings us to the main part that I wanted to talk about. We're going to talk about MMT in a little bit, but first, before we talk about why we need to talk about it, got to talk about this guy. It's a difficult thing for me to put this guy on camera. I really have a difficult time looking at him. I really have a difficult time just looking at his face, I'll be honest with you. But Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate, eyes cuts to Medicare, Social Security, all to address what? The deficit. The deficit. Nearly a year ago, as the debate over Republican tax breaks for the wealthy was near its end, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell insisted that the tax cuts didn't need to be paid for because they'd pay for themselves. I not only don't think it will increase the deficit, I think it will be beyond revenue neutral. In other words, I think it will produce more than enough to fill that gap. I've been working on my Mitch McConnell sound-alike contest. Whether the GOP leader actually believed his own rhetoric is an open question. But either way, we now know the Kentucky senator's claim was spectacularly wrong. The Republican tax breaks have, as Democrats and those familiar with arithmetic predicted, sent the nation's budget deficit soaring. So, one last look into the face of evil. And here I am. So what are they talking about? Once again, it's fear-mongering. It's fear porn. It's all it is. People that get off on, being afraid. And if you're afraid, you will make irrational choices. I've always said, I'm not telling you not to get angry. And you can't get angry if you're not afraid of something. In my case, I'm afraid for my family. I'm afraid for my wife. I'm afraid for my kids. I'm afraid for my community, for my country, for this planet. I'm afraid for everyone. I'm afraid that it's all going to go to shit because that's exactly the trajectory with which we're going. So yeah, I get angry. I get really pissed. But you have to let go of the fear as a decision-making tool. Fear to wake you up to the fact that something is wrong. Absolutely. That's its job. Fight or flight. I choose to fight. And I also choose not to allow fear to make any decisions for me. It's a messenger and that's it. I got the message. Thank you. After that, think about why you are afraid. Why are you angry? And if you remember those things, family, children, love, let the love guide the anger. So when I see things like that, and I hope when you see things like that we are spurred to action, not to reduce the deficit, but to fight back against these people that are insisting that we be afraid of the deficit, that we be afraid of debt, and use that as an excuse to not do X, Y, and Z program that will literally save the lives of everyone. Improve the lives of everyone, save everyone. We can do all that. To whatever degree, clearly we can't make everyone rich. That's not possible. Wouldn't even be desirable. Unless we can have complete and total automation over everything, in which case, have at thee. But we can, at the very least, eliminate, not mitigate, eliminate poverty and needless suffering and misery. Needless. There will always be suffering. There will always be misery. Can't have one side without the other. Can't have a top without a bottom. Can't have happiness and joy without anger, pain, and suffering. But they don't have to be needless. They certainly don't have to be political choices. They can be personal choices, but not political choices. Just because they both begin with P doesn't mean you need to get, all confused about which one is which. No. Personal choice to be miserable, fine. The result of a political choice, not fine. So get angry. I need you to get angry. It's important. It's imperative that you get angry. Because they are going to use the deficit as an excuse to start going after entitlements, what they consider to be entitlements. And I say, first off, take that word back. It is an entitlement. We are entitled to health care. We are entitled to Social Security. We're entitled to all of that. As citizens of this country, not because we paid into something. That's bullshit. We are entitled because we live and breathe in the richest nation in the world. Because we have created an economy that doesn't require gold or a finite fixed commodity to be able to accomplish anything. We have done all these things. We have done great things. And now the only thing we want to do that's great is make a small section of the population that's already really wealthy, incredibly wealthy. We can do better, and we must. And we have to do it now. Why do we have to do it now? Because I'm terrified. I'm terrified of what's to come. And I'm not talking about global warming. I'm talking about revolution. I'm like Bernie Sanders in that. I want a political revolution. I want a sociological evolution. But what I'm terrified of is a bloody revolution. You can push people, and you can push them, and you can push them, and you can push them. But when you've got almost 60% of the population in desperation as the direct result of the political choices that you have made in Washington and we have allowed to happen, eventually it's going to get bloody. Eventually, it will be taken to the streets. And I don't want that. You don't want that. People talk about voter suppression. That's a real thing. People are being extinguished from the voter rolls. They're coming up with all manner of rules that are just impossible for people to be able to accommodate. They're closing down polling places, so there'll be long waiting lines, so people will just give up. So first rule, don't give up. They have made it incredibly hard for us to get involved. Don't give up. Show up. At every opportunity, show up. Get in their face. And when it comes to voting, do not let them stop you. The only way we're going to be able to win this is to be able to get people elected locally and as well as nationally. And that's not going to happen if the best we can hope for is 50 to 60% of the population coming out. That will not get the job done. We are the real problem. We are the ones that need to change. We are the ones that need to be able to stand up and say, no more. We are going to be the solution. Donald Trump is not the problem. Donald Trump is the result of the problem. The GOP and the corporate Democrats are not the problem. The oligarchs are not the problem. They are symptoms and parasites that prey upon the problem. The problem is us. We have not gotten involved. I voted. Every 2 years, I voted, and I was probably one of the most engaged people that I know, and all I did was vote. That's not enough. It's not enough. Me doing this live stream is not enough. Bernie Sanders called for a political revolution. Love him, hate him, I don't care. But get a revolution going. Do it now while we can, while it can be peaceful. Forceful, angry, yes, but peaceful, bloodless. I don't know how much time you think we have. I don't think we have that much time. The clock is ticking, no matter how you slice it. The clock is ticking. So do what you can. Do anything. Always try to find a way to do more. Balance your life. Don't ignore your families. I run the real risk of that every day. But find a way. Find a way to do just a little bit more today than you did yesterday. If the only thing you can do is write a letter, and just every day send it to the same media sources, that's better than doing nothing. Overwhelm them at their mailing outposts. Get a whole bunch of friends to do it. I don't know. Organize something. Organize anything. Be visible. Be in their face. But more importantly than anything, talk to people. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, have conversations at ATM vestibules. Talk about the banking system. Talk about debts and deficits and how they don't matter in terms of the way they were supposed to tell us that it matters. It doesn't matter how big the deficit is. It matters where that deficit was spent and whether we had the slack in the economy to absorb it. Have those conversations. Get people angry. The people that are apathetic, who think there's nothing that we can do, because they genuinely believe that there's only so much money out there and the federal government just doesn't have it. My taxes will have to go up. Explain it to them. Tell them that that's not how it works. And get an ally instead of someone who will just basically get in the way of progress. Even if they don't actively work against it, they're not working for it, and that's almost as bad. So talk to them. Get them involved. Get them to understand what's at stake. You understand, we're getting poorer and poorer as we go through history. As they keep taking more and more and more for themselves, as GDP keeps going up and our pay doesn't. But if GDP is going up, that means sales are happening. Gross domestic product. It is the totality of the sales that go on in the United States. And the vast majority of the sales are done by you and me. How is that happening? If our wages aren't going up, but GDP is going up, how is that happening? It's because we're borrowing money. Personally, we go to banks. We take out mortgages on our home, second mortgages, third mortgages. We get credit card debt. We go to predatory lenders. We put groceries on credit card bills. Yeah, we're spending. Because if we don't, no one else will, and the economy will tank. You want to have this kind of an economy? Then people have to spend. And if the federal government is not going to deficit spend sufficiently to make sure that we have it from our paychecks, then we're going to go to the bank to be able to get it. And the bank likes it that way. They get billions of dollars off of our poverty. They don't want that to change. So we have to change it for them. They're not going to do it willingly. They're going to play dirty. We have to weather that storm until the day comes when we become the storm. And we don't passively, meekly say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?" We tell them, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is what you did to us. We don't have to be vindictive, but we are going to right the ship. And we're going to make sure that everyone gets taken care of. What is best for the people first? What is best for our communities, for our environment, for the planet? I don't know how many people know what's going on in Yemen, in Palestine, in Syria, in South and Central America. But there's a lot of shit going down, and it's happening in your name. It's going to take engagement. It's going to take involvement. Right now, we're fighting for single-payer health care. 70% of the population in latest polls say that 70% want it done. They want single-payer health care. They want Medicare for All. Improved Medicare for All. An end to for-profit health care. And Mitch McConnell would make sure that doesn't happen. Because he knows he doesn't have to pay for his tax cuts. And he knows he doesn't have to find the money to do it. He just simply does it. And then once it's done, comes around and says, well, you know, the deficit is a real problem and we're going to have to deal with entitlements because that's the real driver of the deficit. It's the entitlements if we just got rid of Social Security and Medicare. Fuck you, Mitch. And all the corporate Democrats who are saying we want to be able to repeal those tax cuts so that we can pay for X, Y, and Z. They also are saying that deficits don't matter. They would also, increase the deficit and use it to pay for whatever. But you have to be smarter than them, which isn't very difficult. You have to be smarter than them. You have to know how federal finance works. So we're going to do this again. This is your MMT primer. What are the order of operations? First, you make a set of priorities. Remember, this is a fiat currency, a sovereign currency. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution mandates that Congress and only Congress creates the currency. No one else does. You try to create it, you go to jail. I'll see you in 20 years. So Congress creates the currency. So if they create it, they don't need it from you. So the first things first, they don't set a budget. A budget implies that you have a certain amount of money, only a certain amount and no more. No, make a set of priority, a national set of priority. What do you want to achieve? I want to eliminate poverty in 10 years. I want to make sure that in 5 years we have single-payer health care. Going to have to bring some things online. I want to make sure that in 10 years we have a 22nd century infrastructure. The envy of the world. The stuff you'd see only in movies. I want to start right now with serious research and development into alternative fuels, into alternative energies. I want to be able to take what is already available and start building an infrastructure around that to get us off fossil fuels. You make your list of priorities. What do you want to achieve? That's what's important. After you do that, what do you want to achieve? Like, how do you want to achieve it? How fast? You're going to have to not only make your priorities, end to involuntary unemployment, absolute access to the best health care for everyone in the country, free education. You make your priorities. Now, how quickly can we do it? That's number 2. End poverty in 5 years. Free education for everyone in 10 years, whatever it happens to be. That's your next one. Then you assess. And I know I still haven't fixed that graphic. I know it says asses. I'm sorry. This is like the 3rd week in a row I've done this. So by all means, let the jokes keep coming. God knows they've been coming for the last couple of weeks. I'm a busy man. What can I tell you? But assess your resources. Do you have the real stuff to do it? So what do I mean by this? Basically, I want to do single-payer health care. I want to make sure that everyone has access to health care, the best health care. Any ailment they have, they go see a doctor. That's it. Done. Well, if I simply write the bill and I spend the money to get it done, well, if we don't have the hospitals, if we don't have enough doctors, we're going to just keep bidding up the price. And there's going to be huge wraparound waiting times. You think it's hard to get a doctor right now? Just wait until we try to do this all at once. So the first things first, you must assess your resources. What I want is for everyone in this country to be able to have all their medical needs met. So I need to know what my resource situation is. Do I have the hospitals and clinics ready to go? Do I have enough doctors and nurses and medical technicians? Do I have enough medical manufacturing companies ready to be able to make hip replacement, parts? Do I have everything that we need? Do we have the infrastructure in emergency vehicles? Do we have what we need? And if it turns out that we do, then we can start this from day one. But if we don't, then we need to assess our resources and figure out how long it's going to take to get them online. I need more hospitals. Well, okay, fine. So I'm going to have to retrofit some existing hospitals that have been closed down. I'm going to have to maybe open up some clinics. I'm going to have to build some more hospitals. How long is that going to take? Do we have the real resources ready to do it? Do we have the construction companies, the architects? Do we have the real resources in concrete and steel? Fine, we got all that stuff. Okay, maybe it's only going to take 3 years. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm just throwing out numbers. But it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. So that gets written into the bill. So by 3 years, we now have that. But maybe we don't have enough doctors. Well, maybe we can entice other doctors from other countries who want to be able to move here. That can help take care of a bit of it. Maybe we're going to have to take a look at our education system. Entice other people to become doctors and pay for their education. So maybe it'll take 5 to 10 years. But in 5 to 10 years, we will have everything that we need, all the physical infrastructure, all the human resources and doctors and nurses and technicians. But boom, slowly over time, More and more people get covered because we have more and more resources to be able to absorb that demand. So you got to assess your resources. That's step number 3. After that, you make payments. The federal government does not have to be able to take a look at their resources, assess how much it's going to cost, and then tax and borrow, get the money before they get it. That's what would happen to you and I. You and I have to be able to secure the financing before we do anything. We're either going to put it on our credit card, or we're going to go to a bank and get a loan, or we're going to save out of our paychecks. But we can't do anything until the financing has been secured. Only then can we actually make the purchase, go on the vacation, buy the home, do whatever. But that's not how the federal government finances itself. The federal government creates its own currency. So it will set its priorities. How fast can I do it? Assess the resources to find out how they can do it. Do they have the stuff? Do we have to marshal our resources? Do we have to import things? But once they've got all that figured out, all they have to do is make the payments with newly created fiat currency. Then they adjust taxes for income inequality and inflationary pressures. So we set our priorities. We figure out how long it's going to take to achieve it. We assess the resources to find out if we can do it now or if we have work to do to achieve it in the long run. Then we pay for it with fiat currency. Then we adjust taxes. Maybe yours will have to go up. Maybe it'll go down. But taxes come after. Taxes are last. This is the order of operations. This is how the government operates. This is what you need to know so that we can have single-payer health care, so we can have a federal job guarantee, so we can get off the fucking sidelines every time they want to bog us down and how you're going to pay for it. They want you to do the work of coming up with how much it's going to be and then telling us where you're going to find that money, who's going to pay. They don't actually want to know how you're going to pay for it. They know exactly how you would pay for it if it would happen. The money is just created. But they want you to chase your tail, figure out how you're going to find the money, close corporate tax loopholes here and raise taxes on the 1% and, ponies are going to crap out dollars. They're going to be able to make you chase your tail trying to answer that question as if you were a household. When they ask how you're going to pay for it, they're not asking how is the federal government going to pay for it. They want you to answer that question like how is Geoff Ginter going to pay for it if Geoff Ginter had to be able to pay for his own health care. Well, I'd have to take a third job, and then I would have to be able to not eat food ever, and then I would have to eat my clothes and cannibalize my children, and then I would probably die. But that's what they're looking for. They want you to be able to answer the impossible. When they say that doubling the existing taxes in the country would not come close to coming up with the money to be able to pay for single-payer health care, they're very likely right. I don't even need to know if that's true or not. I already know that it's bullshit. Because your taxes don't pay for federal spending. So I go to bypass that whole notion right off the top. Someone says to me, well, you would have to double all the taxes and we still wouldn't have enough. And I say, you're probably right, but who the fuck cares? That's not how it happens. Order of operations. Taxes come last. And taxes are not there to fund the program. Taxes are there to balance the economy. The first rule of taxes is you tax a population so that they will need the currency. It drives the currency. And we can talk about that another time. I'm running out of time. But you tax so that you will need the currency. You tax so that you will demand the currency. Then you use taxes to adjust for inflation. You use taxes to curb behaviors, income inequality. There's a lot of uses for taxes. Not a single one of them at the federal level goes towards financing anything. So don't have that conversation. It's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. Since 1971, it's been bullshit. So your homework, is to have these conversations. If you need help, you can hit me up, ask me a question. If you want to be able to go to the actual experts, I'm a layman, I'm an activist, I have a lot of knowledge, but these are the people you want to be speaking to. And they will answer your emails. I promise you this. These are the people that you need to be able to read their papers. I know they're academic papers, but trust me, it's not that difficult. They also have a ton of videos if you want to make it more easily digestible. There's a ton of information. Go to Deficit Owls, go to Real Progressives, go to New Economic Perspectives. There is a lot of information out there. I promise you, the only hard part about it is getting out of your own way, of stopping the way you used to think about the economy. That's it. That's the only thing that's hard. Once you get over that, actually understanding MMT is easy. Then you have a further responsibility. Hang on to the love. It's really, really hard sometimes. When you look at the state of the world, when you look at what they're trying to do, and once you understand modern monetary theory, and you understand that they could have done all these things, they just didn't want to. They want you to believe that the free market is like a church. The free market will provide. Oh, the free market! The free market will be able to deal with every ill that we have. And that would be true if the free market could find a way to deal with things that are not profitable. It's not profitable to do all the things that we need to do. So it doesn't do it. It's also not their profit to be able to make sure that we are educated. It's not to their profit to make sure that we have the things that we need, because again, it's not about money, it's about power. Who has it and what do they do with it? It's about economic hegemony, control. So if we want what we want, if we want what we need, we're going to have to rise up. We're going to have to recognize that the free market is bullshit. It's not free. It is set up by individuals and manipulated by individuals. It's not free. So remember, the next thing that you have to do is hold on to the love. Because as you start learning more, you're going to get really angry if you are alive and have a heart at all. You're going to get angry. So remember the love so that you will be useful. Someone who's running around and being angry can be a wonderful lightning rod, can spur a lot of people to action, but to do what? We're trying to avoid a bloody revolution. So you've got to let go of the fear once you've had that message. You must remember the love. Get the information. Hang on to the love. It's critically important. Then go out and do something. Do a live video like I'm doing. The more the merrier. I don't care about messiahs. I don't care about individuals like that. I want the policies. Real progressives fights hard every day. So join us. But if you don't want to join, do something. Join Modern Money Network. They do incredible work. Join Deficit Owls. I don't care. I want the policies enacted. Do what you must. But you must do. Nothing less will suffice. I cannot tell you this honestly enough. We are the problem because we are the ones who said yes, even if we didn't say it vocally, by sitting down and not being in opposition when they eliminated Glass-Steagall, by not being in opposition when they busted the unions. Remember, the only thing that evil needs to thrive is for good people to do nothing. If the worst thing that we as individuals are guilty of is doing nothing, that is sufficient. So don't be that person anymore. Be an activist. Be a preacher. Be whoever you need to be, but be active. Don't let anything stop you. Don't let anything get in your way. We're bleeding. We're bleeding out. And you can stop it. It won't be anyone else. You have to have that mindset. It won't be anyone else but me. God knows the politicians are not going to stop it. They don't want to. The oligarchs, they don't want to. If the free market was going to solve it, we would have been solved. It never would have happened. We wouldn't be where we are right now. 60% of the population in poverty or close to it. Wages stagnant. Our debt is unsustainable, not the federal government's. Look at where we are. Look at what's going on around us, not just nationally, but globally. The free market created this. We created this. So it's up to us. So I'm asking you to make a commitment. A commitment to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to your communities. A commitment to anyone and anything that will spur you to action. I'm desperate to get you to do something, anything. That's what we need. We need a love revolution. We need a sociological evolution. And if you think you're not up to the task, I promise you, you are. You absolutely are. I didn't think I was up to the task. I'm no different than anyone else. There is nothing special in me that is not also special in you. We can do this. So let's get busy. I'm Geoff Ginter. Savage Joy is coming up in a little bit. I'm going to sign off just a few minutes early because I can. But remember, I love you very much. I hope you take care of each other. I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting Real Progressives. If you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe to our various channels. If you want to help us in our fight against neoliberalism and to help create a real deal for the people of the United States, then drop us a line. Find out how you can fit in. Or be a monthly patron. No matter what you do, please get involved. We'll catch you next time.